Anthony Fury in for Ezra. How's this next one to make you feel safe? Turns out that 98 prisoners have been accidentally released from prison prematurely between 2009 and 2013 in the province of Ontario. And the cops are even letting one of those guys remain on the loose. So is our public safety at risk if prisons can make these types of mistakes? Sun News contributor Rachel Sagal joins me with more on this from Vancouver. Rachel, interesting statistics here. Yeah, 98 released over those 4 years. We also know that the government has mistakenly released 229 prisoners since 2003. That's a wider tally there. And that bizarre thing that I teased, that one fellow, he got let out, but the cops said, well, you know what, we're gonna let him stay out there. I don't know what to make of all this. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I don't really know what to make of it either. It's very disappointing, you know, as Canadians, that we're allowing for these people to be released mistakenly. I want to say specifically, we're talking in this case about provincial facilities. So anybody that is sentenced to any offense over 2 years is in federal facilities. These offenders have been sentenced to less than 2 years for various crimes. So although that we talk about, you know, how alarming it is that the recklessness of these correctional officers allowing people to just be let go by mistake, we also have to recognize the fact that, you know, there are hundreds of thousands of prisoners that are incarcerated in provincial facilities every day. And so when we talk about, you know, 229 over the course of 13 years, we aren't talking about a majority in any way of that population. That said, again, in these provincial facilities, we've seen massive overcrowding. We've seen many counts of correctional officers just being confused on sentencing or the identity of some of the prisoners. And, you know, that for me definitely is something that is so shocking when these correctional officers are supposed to be protecting our safety.
But Rachel, I mean, I do want to clarify. I think it's a good point you make about it's the under 2 year sentences. But some of these folks who were released, attempted murder, sexual assault, armed robbery, and assault with a weapon. So it's not just guys who've been jaywalking one time too many. We've got some folks out there who we really don't want on the run. And I think my concern, why it would be a bit of a public safety risk, is you can say, okay, well, you know, what's the deal? If he's out 3 months early or 6 months early, he's going to get out in 6 months anyway. So he's the same guy being released. But I do think you get out early, you're kind of on the run, you're kind of hiding from things. You're in a more dangerous mind frame at that point than if the 3 months just elapsed and you were released as a free citizen. Yeah, I think you're way more at risk of causing trouble out there, which is why I still think it's good for folks to be irate about this. I want to just read what the Corrections Ministry said to excuse themselves. The proper release of any inmate from a correctional facility is unacceptable. Okay, that's good to hear. The vast majority of improper releases are due to an administrative or technical error, which may involve any one of the justice sector partners. You know, they're kind of saying, well, you know, there's other guys involved and they just read the documents wrong and you typed something wrong in the computer. Well, that's even worse. I'd rather hear that there was some violent breakout, because at least you know, okay, you know, it didn't happen through government ineptitude.
Right, and we heard from a Manitoba MLA. Manitoba has seen a few prisoners released by mistake there as well, and he said, you know, the issue is not this that prisoners are escaping; it's that the door's being opened and they're being let out free. So, you know, and we talk about the people with shorter sentences. Some of these cases are incidents where it's, you know, they're let out a day early, but at the same time, what precedent does that set when we're saying, you know, our correctional officers are allowing these people to go even a day early? And then we see cases, like you said, about the attempted murderer who was just set free. That was in Nova Scotia just a few weeks ago. The question is, how do we deal with them once these situations happen? And there's a lot of talk about, you know, whether or not to release the names of these prisoners who are let go. And I think that there needs to be a safety. There's often safety assessments where, you know, they will decide whether or not the prisoner's name should be released, whether or not the public should be made aware. In that case, specifically in Nova Scotia, his mugshot as well as his name was released to the public. But could you imagine if we did that with every prisoner that they let go? Like the heightened sense of insecurity that Canadians would feel. So really, this is becoming a major problem, and it's something that, you know, correctional officers maybe perhaps need better training, better understanding of sentencing, better systems. A lot of these things are done through paperwork. How do we incorporate better computer systems and ensuring that these offenders are actually staying behind bars?
There's always going to be a margin of error in this administrative sort of stuff, but these are the places where you want them less. And I don't know if they need extra training. It just seems like there were slip-ups and there shouldn't have been slip-ups. Maybe you need an extra layer of admin people. God forbid I suggest you hire even one more civil servant, but maybe it's required in this category. We do know that 4 of those 98 had committed offenses while they were out and about when they shouldn't have been out and about. The privacy commissioner has said, no, you don't want to release their names. I'm not entirely sure of the reasoning there, but I do think, you know, when someone's wanted for a crime, we release their picture and their name as a suspect. These people have already been through the justice system and have been found convicted. So I think they'd have even less of a privacy threshold because they're not a suspect at large, they're a convict at large. So the justice system has already said, yes, you with this name and this face, you are in fact guilty. That's why I don't really buy that argument there one bit.
Well, I think it's safe to assume that a security assessment is done in a lot of cases where they choose not to name and shame the offenders publicly. It's situations where offenders are being incarcerated for, you know, 2 or 3 day sentences or a couple of weeks. They're shoplifting offenses, smaller crimes. I think that we have to fairly say that you would hope that in cases where, you know, they have committed these violent crimes, attempted murder, those types of things, they would put forward those names. And we have seen that in the past, that in those violent crime situations where there is a risk to the public and the public should be made aware, they have come forward and released those names.
But Rachel, the problem is the government is not super forthcoming with this information. This was through investigation and probing into it. And that's why, and hey, I don't blame these guys. If they came up to me and said, okay, you're going out 2 months early, I go, oh, okay, and I'd make for the door. I blame the government ineptitude. Rachel Sego, we're out of time. Thank you.